Okay, today we're talking about the myths and stories that you hear about car dealerships, the truth behind the stories that you see online, on YouTube especially, about how bad car dealers are and how they rip you off. And we're going to attack a video I watched recently called 16 Ways a Dealer Steals From You. First and foremost, nobody can steal from you. It's a buyer beware market, as it always has been in the auto industry. So I'm shocked to see videos today, I guess, on that fear mongering of stealing. I mean, now more than ever, the disclosure forms and disclosure agreements and consumer awareness and the protection agencies through the United States government and federal agencies out there with regards to contracting and truth in lending acts. I don't know where this fear mongering comes in. Apparently it sells well, but I'm here to debunk the 16 myths about how dealerships steal from you. And quite frankly, if you're being stolen from, that should give you a lot of ideas of who you are, the store you're at, and the car you're buying. So let's just do a checkup before we go out to go buy cars, and let's take this 16 areas where dealerships steal from you one by one and kind of throw some, I don't want to say light on it or shade, let's just throw some truth to it. Good topics and things to be aware of, yes. The person who makes these videos has an idea of what to say to catch an audience's attention. Unfortunately, a lot of it's out of, again, the fear mongering of how dealerships are taking advantage of you, the consumer. And I'm here after 31 years in the automotive industry through July of 2020, so very recently, am here to tell you the truth behind the stories of what you see online. Stay tuned, and if you like this information, give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Hit the bell for more notifications of videos as we release them to, again, take on the storytelling and debunk some of the myths about car dealerships, them taking advantage of you, how to get a great deal on a new or pre-owned car today, leasing versus buying, and so on. I hope you like this video. My name is Chris Taylor. Stay tuned. Okay, so this is number one of the 16 items that were referred to as how dealerships can steal from you. A trade appraisal or a trade amount is less than agreed upon. I would simply ask for, and each and every time, whether I have a trade or I'm just purchasing a car outright, for a copy of the signed buyer's agreement that we all agreed upon as far as numbers. That should give you the taxable selling price, a trade value if there is a trade indeed in the deal, any payoff that might need to be paid to a bank or a credit union, and then the taxes tagged for your local and state, an out-the-door number or bottom line price, amount to be financed, or for a check to be written for that was agreed upon up front. If you have this in hand, and that should be easily gotten by asking again for a copy of prior to going into the settlement or finance department's office, have that in hand and go line item by line item and ask questions. This should protect you against any numbers changing. Addressing number two now, which is a payoff. Your payoff is lower than what was anticipated, okay? How does that money get handled? Where does that money go? It goes back to you as the consumer. Now, keep in mind, if you're not dealing with a reputable store, and I'm sure there's a few of those still out there, but we're talking about 2020. There's not many stores doing business that way that stay open long before the Attorney General or state's authorities get involved. They will take their dealer's license and shut them down immediately for fraudulent activity or misrepresentation of funds. So what I would do, and what I would recommend you do if you have a payoff, call your lender or the bank, if it's a credit union, whoever it may be, get what's called a 10 or 14-day payoff. You're going to want to get a good through date, the account number, where the address is as far as the payoff's instructions to be paid to, any attention to a department especially designed for payoffs, and anybody that you've spoken to on the phone regarding the verification of these numbers, and keep that with you. If not, then obviously you're going to be subjected to whoever the dealership has handling your transaction. My store ran with a manager, a salesperson, and a finance officer who would go through a checks and balances to ensure our numbers are A, accurate, B, completed as far as the P.O. box or complete physical address for payoffs to be sent to, the values, as well as a 14-day payoff grace period, just in case transactions aren't completed over that same course of the weekend or a day. This gives everybody the chance to be on top of their game. And again, checks and balances is always a good thing. And that money that's left over, if there is an estimated value due back to the consumer or you as the customer, that dealership will issue a check, or your bank or credit union will give you that overpaid amount back in the form of a credit. That can go into your account or the form of a check back to you. After all, that is your money. If a dealership is indeed stealing this from you, then check the dealership you're doing business with and report them immediately to the Attorney General. I'm quite sure they'll be out of business sooner than later. Okay, number 3 is addressing the fact that cars and the prices change, the selling price is higher, or the amount financed is wrong compared to what you agreed upon outside once you get into the finance office. 2 things can happen here. There, A, could be a very good misunderstanding or misleading, I guess, if a dealership is not exactly above bar. B, the dealership, especially manufacturer-supported stores, I should say especially manufacturer-supported stores like Nissan, Toyota, and Honda, sell extended warranties and maintenance agreements, gap insurance if you're financing through them through the dealer. There's other ancillary items that are available for sale that this department typically will go over with you. That's a choice. It's not a must-have, and it's certainly not a reason why your price of the car is going to change. You can elect to say no, and these are typically presented to you in a menu option format. Again, if you find no value in any of this, just assume that you're going to buy the car for the agreed upon amount and just tell them politely, no thank you, I'll take care of this on my own time. Or I'll do this later outside of the financing agreement. For now, I'd just like to purchase the vehicle for the agreed upon price. And thank you. There's nothing wrong with saying thank you but no thank you. There's certainly nothing wrong with the dealership to present all options to you in a very professional and I would say tactful way. Being upfront is first and foremost, and if you're not dealing with that kind of a dealership, then maybe you should go ahead and abort the sale. Go ahead and say no thank you to all of it. Get up and leave, as the one man said in the video. Then go ahead and leave. That's a tactic that some stores don't know how to handle well. That they might chase after you for additional discounts or a better representation of where you might be in the transaction process. Now, I'm not a fan of walking out of dealerships, especially after everybody's invested time, and certainly at that point in time when you're in there ready to settle for everything else. Just get a very firm understanding about what is what. You've agreed upon a price of a vehicle which you want to go over and verify before you go into anything else, and whether that's a menu proposition of aftermarket warranties, maintenance agreements, or gap insurance policies, whatever the case may be, just clarify the numbers first and foremost before you continue on. That's the safest way to get your deal that you agreed upon outside of the finance office while inside the finance office. Okay, number 4. Now, I'm not going to chuckle at this, but I do have to take a little issue with disappearing down payments or money you're missing your down payment. I'm not sure who this guy got information from about disappearing down payments or money being missed from down payments. But there is a receipt process when money is being exchanged, whether it's a transaction of a credit card, a cashier's check, or cash. The receipt itself from a canceled check once it's cashed, also your receipt from your credit card statement or debit card statement, your bank statement, or the cash itself that's being given to reduce the amount of finance or pay for in full is going to be on that buyer's agreement. And if it's not, again, read your agreement to the agreed upon numbers up front before you go into finance. If that money doesn't change, if you gave $2,000 down on a $26,000 balance and your amount to finance or the balance for a check to be written for isn't $24,000, then you need to put the brakes on right then and there and ask why. If you've gone any further than that, then shame on you, but quite frankly, I don't see any dealership staying in business past one transaction being noticed and somebody in the authorities being notified. Now, it was said that it happens one too many times it made the list. Okay, once is too many times in my eyes, but again, I got to take issue with where you're buying a car, the type of car you're buying, and exactly who you are when you're looking over your paperwork. Again, there's a checklist. Make one prior to going out and buying a car. That would be knowing what you're going to buy, what you're willing to pay, what you have for down payment, and just put a checks and balances next to those categories and make sure you've accounted for every one of those items in the list of things you want to feel good about buying a vehicle prior to signing that final dotted line. I promise you, buying a car is nowhere near as hard as these videos make it sound to be. This is just fear-mongering at its worst. 5 through 16. Number 5 is rebates and incentives. If you didn't sign for it or it's not on a buyer's order or a finance contract with your signature, a dealership cannot be reimbursed for that amount of money. Therefore, they're not stealing that from you because they can't get it. Number 6, non-taxable fees. These are government items: tags, title, registration, sales tax. These are exact amounts based on a certain amount of money charged for a vehicle. Again, not a profit center. The government would reimburse you directly to the consumer from them if it was overcharged. Added products, already installed options. When negotiating your deal, just ask for that buyer's order to state "as equipped," and that should alleviate all these problems. Added fees, POS fee. I'm going to assume that he's talking about dealer installed items like pinstripes or door edge guards, or nitrogen in the tires. Again, as equipped on the buyer's order, will solve all that problem. Banker demands. Sometimes you'll find these finance officers going over warranties and maintenance agreements or gap insurance. And if you have less than perfect credit, they may try this tactic on you. He is correct in the statement. Dealerships that don't practice above board type of disclosures may say the bank is willing to give you a lower rate if you're to purchase and protect your loan with a warranty, maintenance agreement, and gap. That is a lie. And if it's being told to you, just get up and walk out. If you're approved there, you'll be approved somewhere else. Changing the interest rate. That does happen from time to time. Dealerships do make money on marking up interest rates from banks and lenders. However, if you have a credit union or a bank that's got a competitive rate, say 2.95, and that dealership can match or come close to that rate and it makes sense for you to do business that way, then do so. However, he goes on to state that every half a point of interest held is an additional $500. That is not true. Every half a point of interest held may earn some additional money, but depending on the amount financed in the term will depend on that value. Changing amount financed, I think, is back to number 3's statement about how a dealership is stealing from you by changing the price. I don't know, it just sounds like we're stacking things on top of the other just to make it sound a little bit more feared or anxiety driven towards going to a dealership to do business. Changing payments, that can happen. Payments do go up if you purchase additional items. If they just magically change based on what you agreed upon, ask for what reason. I'm sure there's a disclosure or a reason it's going to come, and whether you agree with it or not, it's up to you. If you don't agree, either ask for it to go back to what it was or just simply get up and walk out. Changing loan terms. From time to time, people will purchase an extended warranty or a maintenance agreement and gap insurance, which again, if I'm financing a car, I agree with all these items depending on what it is and for how long for. Again, if this is something that you didn't agree to and the terms of the loan change to keep the payment the same and they're trying to say this is included in your loan agreement, just ask again for the original terms before this stuff was added. Do a comparison, find value or don't find value, sign it or don't sign it. It's up to you. There's a reason why loans change, loan terms, and amount financing. Typically, it's these additional items we've spoken about, meaning warranty, maintenance and gap, term, and rate. Just ask the questions, you'll get answers. If you don't like what you hear, get up and walk out. Changing lease terms. Not much of that happening. They're typically 36-month leases. Depending on the price of the car will determine the payment of the vehicle as far as the lease agreement or the lease term. Leasing is a very big topic that we're going to cover here, lease versus buy, in the next video, so stay tuned for that, and we'll go a little bit more in-depth about that. Terms changing though, not really. Leasing, that's a pretty big, tall order. You're paying for mostly half of the car up front at a shorter period of time. If those terms change, the payment would change drastically. It would be extremely noticeable and hard to pull off. So I'm going to throw a little shade on this one. Pushing warranties on a lease. I do agree here. I don't know that I would get an extended warranty unless I drive a lot of mileage per year on a lease, just to have that added protection to make sure I'm only paying for that lease payment that I agreed to. And then salvage titles on pre-owned vehicles. That can happen, absolutely. However, every dealership tied into the DMV doing tag work, and if you're a dealership open for business, chances are you have a line to the DMV on their computer system. You can run a tag or a title check. And that will give you the option of finding out if there's additional items against the title, meaning somebody who traded it in or that you purchased it from might have had a second loan or a second lien that's placed against that title, not making it a free and clear title right now. Or the fact that it may be a salvage title or a mechanic's lien or anything else that might be something that's less desirable for you as a consumer. Ask them to run a title check and provide it through the MBA's circuit or their computer system. Run a Carfax or an auto check. That's one way of showing previous damage or salvage title history. That's not always accurate, but if you have either or both in hand, chances are you're making a good decision and have that evidence to say, I didn't buy this vehicle as a salvage title. I bought it with this information provided to me from you as the dealer. And that gives you a different leg to stand on if you have to take legal action. I hope you find this information as helpful as you found the other person's information, but a little bit more insightful, a lot more truth and full disclosure as far as what some of these things truly mean. Again, buying a car can be a trying task. I understand and appreciate that. After 30 years of doing this for a living, I get it. However, I'm trying to bring truth to the matter and not additional anxiety to ruin the experience. After all, it's one of the 2 biggest purchases you'll ever make in your life. You should be able to enjoy it without having all this fear. If you find this information helpful, hit like and subscribe. If you'd like to get notifications for new information or new videos as we release them, hit the bell. My name is Chris Taylor. I've got over 30 years of automotive experience, and I'm an expert in the field, trying to bring some truth to the matter instead of the fear. Stay tuned for more information and more videos. Thanks for watching.